bone formation called endochondral ossification. So if we take those words apart, endo or inner, chondral, remember that always means cartilage, and then ossification. So what it is, remember bone formation. So endochondral ossification is bone formation from a hyaline cartilage model. Okay, so how do we start? Well, we start with our hyaline cartilage model, obviously, and it's going to look something like this, okay? So it has cells in it. So if it's chondral, it's cartilage, so it's got cartilage cells in it, and these are chondrocytes. So cyte always means mature cell, chondro means cartilage, so this is a mature cartilage cell, okay? And then on the outside we have immature cartilage cells, and these are chondroblasts. And this outside layer of chondroblasts we are going to refer to as the perichondrium. Okay, now we have, I should mention, we have blood vessels around here providing nutrients. Okay, I should put that in there. Okay, so what is the fate of these chondroblasts? Well, what's going to happen is they're going to become osteogenic cells. Osteogenic. And remember, those are like our bone stem cells. And then what they're going to become is osteoblasts. Okay, remember blast always means baby or immature, so I think baby bone cells. Okay, and so they're going to be right here. And what do you remember the osteoblasts do? Well, osteoblasts begin to secrete the organic bone extracellular matrix. Okay, so if we move forward, this is what it's going to start to look like. Okay, so hyaline cartilage model, you still have these cartilage cells in here, and then you have these osteoblasts that are secreting this matrix. Well, what happens also at the same time is these cartilage cells start to enlarge, and then what happens is everything around them starts to calcify. And what happens is this, what's going on right here, ends up cutting off all the nutrients that were helping those chondrocytes, okay? So then what would result if you cut off the nutrients to the chondrocytes? Well, they would die, right? So what happens is they leave behind these little cavities, okay? Because these guys are dead now. They're dead. And so they leave behind these cavities. We still got the bone collar here, okay? I should write out that this is the bone collar. And what we call this kind of outer layer of bone now is, instead of it being the perichondrium, it's now the periosteum. Okay, and you've heard that word before when we talked about the osteon. Okay, so here we are. So we have these kind of open wounds, you could call them here. We got bone collar here. So what's going to happen? So what's going to happen is a big blood vessel is going to come in through here. It's going to make its way through here. It's going to come to save the day. Save the day. Okay, so there it comes. It comes in with all its glory, and what it brings with it are, ta-da, osteoblasts. And what do osteoblasts do? They lay down bone, right? So what we call this area right here is the primary ossification center. Primary ossification center. This is our denotation for primary. So everything's going good here. It's forming an initial layout of spongy bone is what's going to be in here. Okay, it's going to lay down just kind of our framework for what we're going to have. Also, subcutaneous blood vessel there. Also, you're going to have blood vessels come into the epiphyses. So here's an epiphysis. Epiphysis. And you remember what this part was? That was the diaphysis. I'll put that here. Okay, so it comes into these other sites, and it's what we call the secondary ossification centers, okay? Now think about where we still have cartilage left. We still have cartilage left on the tips of the bones, right on the outer edge of the epiphyses. And then we also have it left between these primary and secondary ossification centers, okay? So what happens with them, okay? So eventually you're gonna have this elongation of bone, right? As these centers continue to produce bone, okay? So they're continually growing, everything's kind of pushing outwards this way. Also in the middle, you start to hollow out a medullary cavity, okay? Bone around it. So this, I'll put a little bit of blood in here so you can remember this is the okay. And so what's going to happen is the cartilage that you have on top always remains. That's hyaline cartilage, and it's specifically referred to as articular cartilage. This always remains, okay? So it's what's in between bones when they articulate or join, and it helps them move across each other in a safe manner, okay? You don't want grinding bone on bone. This is a protective mechanism here. And then you also have a little bit of cartilage left in this area, okay? This is the epiphyseal plate. And this is where the growth and length is happening, okay? So you have cartilage in here that's growing, but you also have bone that's growing. Now, eventually, this is going to become calcified. These guys are going to take over, okay? And so that you no longer have cartilage left, and it's going to seal, and it goes from being called the epiphyseal plate to the line, okay? And this is a little line where it's been completely calcified on either side that you can actually end up seeing on x-rays. So the cartilage, the articular cartilage, stays behind for forever, but the cartilage in the epiphyseal plate does not, okay? So I think that's pretty much the basics of endochondral ossification. Remember, these are kind of how all your these are how all your long bones form through this hyaline cartilage model. The other way that bones form, if you remember, is intramembranous ossification. And we think of these as like our dermal bones or our roofing bones of the skull. Roofing bones, okay? But these guys are really everything from our neck below, and we classically think of them as long bones. Okay, so I think that is the quick and dirty. Obviously, there's some more details that might have been missed or covered or not covered there, but this should get you kind of your basic understanding of endochondral ossification.